So welcome to the CWK show, Conversations with Katinda Live, where we talk about this thing we call life. I'm your host, Katinda Ndola, author of The Big Comeback and the founder of the Confidence and Self-Esteem Academy. In today's show, we are blessed to be in the presence of two amazing speakers. And our first speaker is Dr. Chris Lemoh. Chris is an infectious disease and general physician. Hello and welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi, Katinda. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome to the show. And our second speaker is Mohamed Mohideen. Mohamed is the head of Priority Communities Engagement, COVID-19 Response, COVID-19 Vaccination Program, Victoria Health Department. Hello and welcome to the show, Mohamed.
Thank you, Katinda, and thank you for having me here this evening. Look forward to a very interesting session.
Yes. So in our conversation today, our guests will be sharing, educating, and answering some of your COVID-19 questions, the good, the bad, and the curious about the vaccines and what the future looks like for all of us. Now, before we begin, I would love to know, how are we feeling today, Chris and Mohamed?
I'm good. I just come out from another session, nearly 1 hour plus session at the moment, so I'm good.
You're good. Chris?
Yeah,
how you feeling?
It's good. Things are good. Tiring, but good.
Tiring. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure that we get everybody on screen when you're speaking. Give me 1 second to figure this out. Okay. Just trying to make sure that you can see. Okay. So we know that there has been a major shift in everyone's life at the moment. COVID-19 was introduced to our lives, and life will never be the same again. Many people are suffering under duress and don't know what to do. In other words, they're losing hope. So the question is, how then did we even get here? Chris, is that the conversation?
How did we get a pandemic?
Yeah, how did we even get here? Why are we here right now? What happened?
These things do happen from time to time. I mean, we've had influenza epidemics most years for as long as anyone can remember, but that's what happens. The viruses live in other animals. Sometimes they cross species, they adapt to different hosts, and we humans keep on breathing keep on breathing on each other, coughing and sneezing and passing things between each other. So that's what happened. And this was just, it's a big one because it's a new virus. It's never been in humans before, end of 2019. And so none of us have got any real natural immunity to it, except, specifically for this. So it's affecting a lot of people around the world because of that reason.
Right. So I've got a few questions here. So we hear cases of vaccinated people being admitted in hospital for COVID-19. Does that mean they might all have underlying issues, and that's why they're sick?
Yes, you can say that. So the vaccines are all very good at preventing serious illness. They're pretty good at preventing infection, but even if you do get infected, if you're vaccinated, you're less likely to get seriously ill. But there are some people whose immune systems are not strong anyway because they have some other condition, and they don't respond to the vaccine as strongly as someone with a healthy immune system. So sometimes people do get sick even if they've been vaccinated because of conditions like that. Or because they didn't get the complete vaccination course, because all of the vaccines that are available need 2 injections to really boost the immune response against the virus. So if someone's only had 1, it's not enough to necessarily protect them from getting sick.
Sounds good. Now, Mohamed, maybe you can give us an insight on this as well. So what are some of the strains we're going to be seeing of COVID-19? I know we have Delta now, but what are the other strains that are coming up?
So, as Chris would have mentioned, and one of the key things to understand with viruses, they will mutate. And this is not the end of the mutants that we are going to see. And that's a constantly change that occurs in viruses. It can be a small change, or it can be a larger change that can also cause more infections as well. So we've got about 11 strains out there at the moment that we talk about. But we're also seeing in the last maybe a month or so, there are 2 other strains. The Lambda strain is also there. We have gone up to Delta. Now we have the Lambda strain. And in USA, we have also seen a new strain called the MU strain. So it's going to happen, and it's going to change, and we are going to have more strains in the future as well. But the good thing is, when we talk about vaccines, we have now got a vaccine in place. It's just going to be where the companies are going to be able to work with those vaccines and develop so that they're also effective against the new strain. This is similar to the flu vaccine. Every year, there's a change in the vaccine that you're given. It's sort of targeting the new strains that are out there. So we're moving forward, but we're also fighting this battle with our vaccines.
Yeah, but then how do they know that what the new variants are going to be? How do they even know that? Because they've already named them. How do they know?
Because they've already tested, they've done the genetic, aspects of it. So that gives you an idea. Because, like for example, with any virus or bacteria, there's the genetic information that is available. So the new strains will have some specific codes or specific genetic information that makes it different. So this is how they identify the new strains as it comes forward.
Right, sounds good. Thank you so much. So, but this is a vaccine, it's a preventative measure. It's not a cure. So do we have a cure for COVID-19?
Chris, I'm happy to answer.
So it's not, most people, their own body controls the infection. So, I mean, you sort of can talk about a cure, but a cure is something that, in addition to what your own body will do. So most people's immune system actually controls the infection, but there is a minority of people where it doesn't. And in some people, their immune response is so fierce that it actually damages their own body. So there's an overreaction, or there's an underreaction, or you can have the reaction which is just right, that enables the person to recover. So the treatments that are available now, so there's more treatments than there used to be. They've been developed quite rapidly. Some of them are completely new. Some of them are drugs which have been used for different purposes, which are now being used for COVID. So there are some that prevent the virus from reproducing itself in the body. So that gives the body a chance to get ahead of the virus and control it. And then there are others which actually reduce the strength of the immune response from being so damaging to just enough to control the infection without damaging the body.
And what about this one? Why has the hydroxychloroquine been banned in Australia when it has proven to be very effective medication for COVID-19, especially in India, when they had their increase in people infected?
Well, the thing is that it has not been proven to be effective against COVID-19. So there have been a lot of different medications which are already used for other conditions, which were tested against COVID-19. And sometimes in the laboratory with cell cultures, just like, Petri dishes of cells, you put the chemical in there, you watch the cells and see how they change. So some of them look like they might work. Then you have to try it in humans. So a human body is completely different to a plastic dish full of cells. And so it behaves differently. So you have to actually test things. And hydroxychloroquine did not work against COVID-19. Didn't prevent infection, didn't prevent people from getting sick, didn't help them get better faster when they got sick.
It's the same with ivermectin that people are sort of talking about. And we have seen cases even in USA where people have taken what's given to animals and they've been sick in hospitals. So there's no cure of that nature out there. But unfortunately, there are people who will peddle these sort of drugs as the treatment.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the ivermectin, it was actually quite, I think last year, I was looking at this last year in the news, and it looked like the people who were selling the story of ivermectin actually had interests in the company that produced it. So it's bad. Like whenever there's a disaster, there are, people who are, a bit like vultures. They like to feed on the victims. And unfortunately, that ivermectin story is one of those scams.
Right. And who should the people really listen to? The elected politicians who are not medically trained, or the mainstream media? Where are people are very confused. Where should they be listening this information? Where should they get the information from?
Well, this is like the crux of the whole thing, because there is so much information and a lot of it's garbage. So you kind of have to think, well, first of all, how will someone know what they say they know? Have they got training in it? Have they got expertise in that field? Have they got a track record of having done good work in that field? Do they belong to an institution that has got a reputation of good science? And for people who are not qualified, like politicians, who are they listening to? Are they listening to people with, good scientific expertise and good reputations, or are they listening to scoundrels? Or are they listening to people who have got a different agenda? So that's one thing, is how do people know what they know? And the other is, do you trust them? Do you trust that they're out for your welfare? And, some people are very cynical, I think, about politicians. I mean, it's very easy to be cynical about politicians, but you have to sort of think of, why would they say what they're saying? What are they trying to get you to do? Now, no politician wants to reduce their support. No government wants to kill off its taxpayers. And most of the time, most of the people want life to be stable, to be good, so that everybody can get on with their lives in a peaceful situation, doing things that keep society running. So you have to kind of look at what the agenda is of people who are saying what they say. Are they the people who are trying to get people to work together to be peaceful, cooperative, healthy, and, productive? Or are they people who want to divide and set people against each other or make a profit off that chaos?
Thank you. Now, we've got a question here from Kenya. She asks, would you recommend someone who has had COVID-19 to get a vaccine, or do they possess natural immunity?
Yeah, so this question was answered quite early last year. You can get COVID twice. There's a friend of my family who was living in Argentina, going between Argentina and Greece. He and his wife both got it twice. And unfortunately, the second time may be worse than the first. It's just by chance, because it depends on what strain you get infected with and your body's reaction to it. So the vaccine is not the complete virus. It's a part of the virus that trains your immune system to respond in a better way to the infection. So that means that when it's trialed, the immune response you get from the vaccine is more protective and less damaging than the one that you get from the natural infection.
So then you're saying if you can get it twice, that means can you still get it more than twice?
I would think so. I think, I'm not sure what the record is at this stage.
But it's a possibility.
Someone will be counting, but, coronaviruses, they're a large family of viruses, and some of them cause the common cold, just your normal cold. And that you never become immune to the common cold. You always get another cold. So the natural infection doesn't seem to produce a long-lasting immunity.
And also, I think one thing to remember is we have various strains of the virus. So you could get infected from alpha and then recover, and then this is why we ask people who have been infected with COVID to get vaccinated after their 6 months period, because you could be infected with Delta strain or any other strains that are out there. So that's why there's when you get infected, it's not going to be a cure against all the strains.
Can you get more than one strain at the same time?
Yeah. I don't think so, and because normally that doesn't happen. So, unless we find somebody who does, but I've not heard of any person being infected by more than one strain at a time. So I don't know, Chris. Maybe you might be able to.
I'm not sure. It's interesting. I actually don't know. But the thing is, the viruses they're like in competition with each other. The different strains are in competition with each other, and whichever one is most infectious and most easy to transmit from one person to another, that will be the one that spreads through that population. And you'll find that, everybody in that population will probably get infected with the same strain, because it's the one that's best at surviving in that population. And then, there'll be another strain down the track.
One of the biggest problems is when you get a viral infection, and Chris will, I think, maybe able to talk more about it, that you can also get a secondary infection with a bacteria. So that's, I think, one of the biggest problems we're facing as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means that, because a virus, like, they're antivirals, but the antibiotics that we use are against bacteria, not against viruses. So it is possible to get a viral infection, but then get a bacterial infection on top of that. And some of those can be quite severe and give you pneumonia and things like that. And they need antibiotics to be treated. It doesn't happen a lot in COVID, but when it does, it means people take a turn for the worse.
Oh, okay. And I see a question here in the chat. Is the current vaccine useful for the current strain, given that it was created for the previous strain? So we see we're getting vaccinated against the original COVID, but now it's already mutated to Delta. So is the vaccine still?
The vaccines are very effective against both the Delta strain as well. And there's a research that's come out, and I use that slide with all my presentations. It's effective against all the strains that are out there. So both the Moderna, the Pfizer, and the AstraZeneca are both effective. And if I can share but it's effective against all the strains. All three vaccines that we are going to have in Australia at the moment will be very effective against the Delta strain.
What did you want to share a slide? Oh,
I can share the slide. Just give me 2 seconds. I'll try and find that slide for you, and then maybe just that one single slide I think will be useful for this.
I mean, I guess it's important to know that all of these things are being monitored continuously all the time. So every time someone gets tested for COVID, and if it turns up positive, then that sequence of that virus gets put into a database, and they look at that and compare how similar it is to the other cases in the area. And so if something new starts to appear, it gets picked up pretty quickly.
Sure. Okay. Well, we're waiting for that slide. There's another question.
Sorry, I can't share. Just to give me access to share. I can now.
Yes,
I'll show you the slide. Sorry. That's the slide I wanted to share with you. So can you see that? Yeah.
Yes.
So you can see this is from UK, the information has come out. So like after dose 1, whether it be from AstraZeneca, Pfizer, or Moderna, it's effective against the alpha strain and the delta strain. We had the alpha strain somewhere in June, July. That was the strain that was causing problems in Victoria. And today we have the delta strain, and you can see after dose 2, you can go up to 96% immunity as well.
Wow. Okay. So
I'll stop sharing that.
Yeah, we've got a question from Kenu. She says, how soon after a person has been infected with COVID should they get vaccinated? I think you were saying you recommend after 6 months?
Yes, up to about 6 months, I think. That's the recommendation out there. People wait for 6 months.
So what would happen if somebody was vaccinated? I mean, assuming we've got COVID and we didn't even know we've got it and we went to get vaccinated, what would happen?
Chris, you answer.
So the recommendation is that all other things being equal, it would be best to wait for 6 months after recovery. However, if there is COVID actively circulating in the community, it might be better to have a vaccine earlier so you don't get it a second time. And so that's something that the doctors who look after you will discuss. But there are also recommendations from the health department, which it's like weather forecasting. They say, what's the epidemic like now? Do we delay the vaccine so that you get the best response, or do you do it earlier so at least there's some protection? Because there's always the risk of new cases coming through. So ideally 6 months, but if there's a lot of cases in the community and there's a high chance that you recover from this one, you walk out the door and then you get infected again, then as soon as you recover from that first illness, you could still get vaccinated.
So how can we get tested to know that we've actually got it? So let's assuming we've had infection around the community, maybe we feel a bit sick, nothing happened, and we just assume we're fine. How do we know we've not been infected?
So the first thing, I guess, is to reinforce the message that even mild symptoms, it's good to get tested, because the one person can get just a mild, blocked nose and a sore throat, but the person in their household can get really sick and end up in hospital from that same virus. So because they didn't know and they didn't take steps to prevent, transmission in the house. So even mild symptoms, it's good to get tested. If there are no symptoms at all, it's not worth getting tested unless you are in a specific workplace where that is being done, like in some hospital wards it's being done, for example. but the chance of actually getting a positive test if you have no symptoms is actually pretty low. It's really a more sensitive test if you are having symptoms. So the main thing is, if you are feeling sick, if you're planning to get vaccinated, but you actually feel sick that day, don't go get vaccinated, go get tested and then wait for the result. And then when you feel better, that's when you go and get your vaccine.
And one of the advice that we are giving is that if people have been to a tier 1 site, if they have been to a hotspot, because then you are considered to be a primary close contact, because we do not know who's been there, and they should get tested. Even if you don't have any symptoms, you still go and get tested, and you still quarantine for the 14 days if you've been to a hotspot. So the advice is, as Chris mentioned, that if you have any symptoms, get tested. It's free. You don't have to pay for it. So like I've got tested more than 6 times now. Each time I was negative, but I think it's important because we do not know whether we are infected or not. And you don't want to take the risk of being in the community as an infected person. Although you might not show symptoms, you could be spreading the disease as well. So get tested, and it's not only protecting your family, but also protecting your community out there.
So is there another way of testing apart from them doing that thing they put in your nose? Because that's kind of very uncomfortable. Do they have any other better ways?
No better ways, unfortunately not. That's the most sensitive, and so it's the best test. If you want to be sure you don't have it, that's the one. There are other tests which are used for infants who, where it's hard, or for kids, which is just the saliva. And there are some places where if you're having tests every day because you work in a hotel quarantine or you work on a cancer ward or something like that, then you're not going to have a thing up your nose every day. So it'll be like once a week you have that, and then the other days you just spit into a container. But the one with the saliva is less sensitive, so there's less chance that it will pick up and more chance that it will miss the infection. But if you do that every day for a few days running, it's more likely to pick it up. But yeah, unfortunately, so far there's no better test than the nasal swab.
Well, okay, we've got another question here. There is a talk that the USA is not accepting AstraZeneca as a valid COVID vaccine. How true is this, especially when travel is going to be opening up?
So there's been, because some of the AstraZeneca was made here, so unfortunately there was the issue of us not registering the company here in Europe. But now they're moved to the new term now. AstraZeneca is no more called AstraZeneca. It's called Vaxzevrica. That's the term that's used. If you go into the website, people don't use the term AstraZeneca anymore. That's what people know, but the new term is Vaxzevrica. And Vaxzevrica is registered internationally. So I think people are going to move and accept that as the vaccination.
Now, I saw this circulating on social media. Remember to get vaccinated, or a vaccinated person might get sick from the virus they got vaccinated against because you're not vaccinated. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, the question is very...
Okay, so remember to get vaccinated, or a vaccinated person might get sick from the virus they got vaccinated against because you're not vaccinated.
So we all know that although you're vaccinated, no vaccine is 100% foolproof. It can give you 100% immunity. So even though you're vaccinated, you can still pick the virus. You can still transmit the virus to other people. The advantage of getting vaccinated, we know, is that you might not end up with a severe infection where you need to be hospitalized or be in the ICU and even death. And if you look at the number of cases that are now in the ICU, it's about 200 odd cases are in hospital, 42 are in ICU, and 36 of them are on the ventilator. So, and if you look at the percentage of people in hospital who are unvaccinated, over 92% are unvaccinated people. There's only one single person who's fully vaccinated, but they have other comorbidities as well. So vaccination will reduce and probably not get you the infection, but it is not 100% foolproof mechanism.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's body is different. So, I mean, our immune system is, we inherit characteristics from our parents, and then it adapts as we get older as well. So everyone's immune system is like their fingerprint, it's unique. So the vaccine builds on that. but everyone's starting point is a bit different. And the best effect of the vaccine is if everybody is vaccinated.
Yeah.
That gives the least chance for the virus to find the person whose immune system is a bit weak or who's got other conditions which make them more likely to get sick.
And some scientific evidence coming out from states and all that say people who are vaccinated do not get mutants, don't develop in them because you're vaccinated, your body is fighting back, so the virus has no time to mutate, because it's in unvaccinated people that we find the new mutant strains coming from.
Oh, okay. So if people that are fully vaccinated are still contracting COVID-19, then what is the point of getting the booster vaccine?
So there's two reasons. So one is that they are less likely to get infected if they're exposed. So that's the first step. So if you have been vaccinated and then someone near you has the virus, you have less chance of getting infected if you've got the vaccine. But it still can happen, but much less likely. If you do get infected, you're much less likely to get seriously sick because your immune system is better trained to control the virus without causing huge damage to yourself. So it means that your illness will be mild and it will be shorter. And the third thing is that you yourself are then less likely to transmit it to another person because your own infection has been controlled faster. So it's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than nothing. Much, much better than nothing.
Okay, so, and what is actually, I get a question here, what is actually a booster vaccine? What does it do? Or
so
what
booster
good
vaccine, is it? So not all immunity lasts for life. So, if you think about when you're growing up, you get all of these needles, at various times in your childhood, because it's like, it's memory, it's literally memory. So the vaccine makes your immune system remember something, but then as the years go by, it may forget. It needs to be reminded. Some vaccines, the memory lasts a long time and sometimes it's short. So as Mohamed was saying, with the flu, it doesn't last that long. So you have to get a shot every year. And then there are other ones where it lasts, decades. COVID, we don't know yet how frequently boosters will need to be given because of the waning immune memory. But then there's also new strains may come. So at the moment, the vaccines work against all of the strains which are circulating, but probably in the future, there'll be another strain which doesn't cover, and there'll need to be a slightly modified vaccine to protect against that new strain.
Okay, here we have a question, I think. Do you want to unmute yourself?
I was typing.
Yes,
I was typing, I'll ask. Yeah, so thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to ask this question, directed at the doctor. So my question is, what is the COVID vaccine efficacy in people living with autoimmune conditions, and especially as it relates to the suppression of the immune system due to the medication they are taking? Yeah.
So, we're both doctors. I'm a medical doctor. Mohamed's a microbiologist. So,
okay.
Yeah. And so we might have to pass this between both of us. But if you've got immune system which is not strong, so if there's an immune deficiency or if there's medication which suppresses the immune system, you probably won't get such a good response to the vaccine as somebody who did not have that condition. However, it's still better than the actual natural infection. So there is some benefit, even if it's not as much benefit as if you had a normal immune system. Mohamed, do you have something to add to that?
That's correct, I think, because that's what it is, I think. So, and like even people who are immunocompromised, who are undergoing chemotherapy treatment, have also been asked to get vaccinated because your immune system is compromised, and the vaccine will at least give you some safety against the COVID virus.
Yeah, I guess the thing is, with immune system, it's a really, really complicated thing. And we talk about a strong immune system, a weak immune system, but it's a lot more complex than that. So you'll never be in a situation where you have absolutely no immune system. Like there's something there to build on what the vaccine gives, even if you've got a serious condition. It's just a case of, how well it responds, and is it enough to prevent you from getting sick at all? Or is it enough just to stop you from getting seriously sick?
Okay, now we have a question here from Liz. My friend's son is autistic. She feels giving her son this vaccine that is not well tested extensively can have huge effects on her son. What is your opinion on vaccinating children with autism?
Okay, so there's a, I guess, a challenge with this because there's a history of bad science and actually malicious science that falsely said that there was a link between vaccines and autism. So that research was done, I think it was in the 70s, but it has actually been debunked. The guy that did that was a crook, and it has been officially declared to be a crook, and it's wrong. So that is not a thing. As far as the testing of these vaccines, I think these would probably be the most extensively tested vaccines in history, I would say, because the concern about safety for medications in general and for vaccine has never been higher than it is now. There are really strong regulations in almost every country, I would say, that's got a stable government to say that vaccines have to be tested and proven to be safe in order to be licensed. There's the best monitoring systems for reporting side effects that have ever been in existence for vaccines, so that if you've had the vaccine, you know that you'll get that SMS a few days later to ask how you're going and say, have you experienced any symptoms after the vaccine? All of that gets fed into a database, and so that means that as people start reporting things, it gets looked at, and if there looks like there's some link, it gets reported really quickly, and people start to make recommendations about what we do. So they're really, really closely monitored. For a child with autism or any kind of communication issues, if you think about what happens when someone gets COVID, they get put in isolation. If they're in hospital, they're in a room and the staff don't come in as frequently. So the communication is already difficult. And if you've had some communication difficulties at the beginning, it makes it really challenging. And look, one of the things that really upsets me in hospital is the way, there's no visitors, people are, on their own in a room, staff don't come in as frequently, and they get very lonely, and, people can be on their phones or on iPads or whatever. It's not the same as having a person there. It's even worse if they don't speak English fluently and the staff don't speak their language. So it's a very isolating experience. So I think it's bad for anyone to get sick. And physically, you worry about the health of your child, of course. But then if they get sick and they need to be in that isolated situation, I think it would be even worse. So I think very much a good idea to vaccinate the child if they're old enough to have the vaccine.
And I see here somebody says, what happens if you don't go for your booster vaccine? Does your body shrivel, or do you start growing unusual body parts?
No. in a word, no. Look, I think I don't want to lie. The thing is, a lot of these things sound funny, but there is a lot of rubbish information out there. But the other thing is that some of the misinformation is like exaggerations of real things. So like, there's stuff about people being worried about their fertility if they get the vaccine, because, like for example, in Ethiopia, I think there was a rumor that people were being sterilized because, when they were getting vaccine. People not realizing that if you are in a place that's very far from the medical center and you're going there to get your vaccine, you might also get, fertility control, you might also get your blood pressure check and all the things that you need to do, because you have to walk a long way to get to that health center. And then someone else might say, oh, they're sterilizing all the women when they're vaccinated. Then people start to inflate and have rumors and things like that. So, it sounds funny, but, I don't want to mock, because some of these things have snowballed out of some fact which has been just distorted and blown up and spread around, which is different to the ones which is just someone making up a meme and spreading it to make mischief.
I think it's really sad, because I think people have fear. It's genuine fear because this is an unknown disease that has all of a sudden spread so fast, and people are still trying to come to terms with it, and they see loved ones dying as well, and there's a lot of fear in them. And unfortunately, as Chris mentioned, like people are trying to make money out of it on one side, and there's all these anti-vax people who are trying to sort of spread all these rumors. And unfortunately, sometimes people do believe them because they are seeking some comfort. And this is where I think our role, and I've always told people, we have to be very gentle with people who have these anti-vax opinions, because it's sometimes they've heard it from somebody else or relative or friend from overseas. Because when we talk about the CAL community, there are lots of people. We are not just Australia. We are international, and we are going to hear stories from overseas as well. So it's important to have that. It's a mutual respect and I think comfort that we can offer people and have that dialogue. I think the dialogue is very important going forward to talk to people.
Yeah, but what are the questions that people need to ask when people come up with all these interesting stories? What are the questions to ask them for them to kind of get some trust something? Because I think it's lack of trust with everything that's going on as well.
So one thing is to ask them where they got the information, because you're not trying to find fault with the person who's giving you that information. You're not trying to shoot the messenger. You're trying to find where the information came, and that's how you sort of get the correct information, so people understand this is not the correct, this is not accurate, this is not authentic. And this is why when we talk to people, we say go to sites that are reputed, because at this stage what we are finding, and this is my talks across various communities, the anti-vax, now there are more people getting vaccinated since the outbreak, the second and the third outbreak, more people are getting vaccinated. The anti-vax people are getting marginalized, so their voice is very loud, and they tend to attend many of the forums to, show their views as well. And I just came from some other forums, I've seen that happening. So it's that aspect of it that we need to also consider. It's a human nature. When you're cornered, you fight back, and sometimes their voices might be louder than the voice of the reasonable person who's trying to find out an answer to their concerns.
We have here a question. Well, my husband got vaccinated and was sick as a dog. Let me just see what. And he never got a call from a doctor or the team managing the vaccines. And he was not even advised to take painkillers after the shot, and he got an AstraZeneca vaccine.
Okay. So a few people do get reactions to the vaccine, and to either the Pfizer or the AstraZeneca. With the Pfizer vaccine, the more severe reactions are more likely to happen on the second shot, and with AstraZeneca, more likely to happen on the first one. So you can get a sore arm, you can just feel tired, you can get a fever, get rigors. So when I had my vaccine, after the second one, I had a fever, I had chills, I had shakes. It felt like I was having malaria again. But after
COVID.
2 days, I was fine. So, it's most of those reactions, it will last for 2 days maximum. And the information that they give you in the when you get the shot is they give you an information sheet. They describe the symptoms which you might expect to get, which are not serious. They say how long you would expect to tolerate those ones, and if it lasts longer than that, then you should call your doctor. And they also say what are the serious symptoms that you need to watch out for, which might be one of the rare severe side effects. And they give you a number to call, in case that happens. And then there's also that follow-up text message, which they just check up on you and say, have you noticed anything unusual? So it can happen, but most of the side effects are either mild or very short-lived, and it's only a very, very few people who get serious side effects.
Chris, I think just to add to that follow-up text message, I don't think it comes from GPs. It only comes from the state-run sites, because I got my vaccination from a GP. I never got a text message asking if I am. So I think it's only from the state-run.
The state ones,
State-run.
Thanks for that.
Okay. And also here, my friend got a Pfizer vaccine and has had a sore arm for 5 months. What can you advise her to do? She went to the doctor. She was asked to wait for 6 months.
I guess it's to wait for what? So the vaccine shouldn't give you a sore arm for a long time. It does need to be given in the right way, in the right spot. So the doctor should make that evaluation as well. So it's hard to comment on a particular case because there could be a few explanations for that, but the main thing is to see the doctor, and if it's still a problem after the first time, no doctor is going to get upset if you come back because things didn't get answered the first time. Sometimes you need to see somebody more than once to really work out what's going on. So I think if you are still, your friend's still concerned, the best thing is actually go back to that doctor and then ask for them to take it further if it needs to be.
Okay, we've got a question from Judith. Judith, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, thanks, Katinda. I just wanted to find out because I think Dr. Chris mentioned, I think both doctors mentioned that we have to go back to credible sources. But on the backhand, Dr. Chris has also mentioned that the guy that had a credible source was a crook. And so we're about the autism situation, which kind of makes it a bit, like, so what do we do now? Like, are we gonna trust this whatever is happening now in the information? Because, in a few decades or whatever, would this turn out to be something similar?
So I guess the thing to say there is that he was found out many years ago to be a crook because he did not follow the procedures which are standard, research. The systems for evaluating quality of research have improved over years as well, I must say. So it's just like if anybody has done a course recently in the last few years at university or TAFE or anything like that, and they checked, the plagiarism checks. So those are getting much more sophisticated. So people are picking up those plagiarisms much more easily than they used to a few years ago. So it's similar in science. There's systems for picking up errors or bad practice are much more stringent than they used to be. Over time, I mean, the difference with science and other types of knowledge, I think one of the things is, if you're wrong, and people will say so, and then you can make a judgment rather than claiming that, to be saying the truth despite all of the evidence against that. I mean, I think one of the ways of testing whether someone is credible is their reaction when something comes up that is not consistent with what they're saying. So they're saying one thing and then evidence comes and it says that the thing that they said is now wrong. They should say, I was wrong. I'm going to look at this new thing and I'm going to come up with a new explanation. And then we'll test that new explanation and see if it works. Whereas the people that are either scammers or they're trading on, confidence tricks or whatever, will either ignore the new evidence that contradicts their story, or they will try and slander the person who is saying the evidence that contradicts their story, or they'll make up some other explanation to incorporate it in there without actually offering it up to be tested. Whereas a scientific method, they will offer their, they'll propose the theory and they'll say, come and prove me wrong, please. And if you prove me wrong, I will say thank you, and then we'll try and do better next time.
Okay.
And I also had another question, sorry.
Go ahead.
I had someone just tell me, I think this was this morning, that they had like a delayed response to the vaccine. I think it was an AstraZeneca because it's an under 30-year-old. And they actually had the symptom, like a, sort of reaction initially. And then all of a sudden they had another, sort of bout again just recently. So is that common in the virus, in the vaccines, or just one of those ones that just come up like that?
So it's not common with the vaccines. One of the things that can happen is, of course, you can get another illness after the vaccine, which is just nothing to do with the vaccine. It's just that you got sick. First you had the vaccine, then you got sick, but it wasn't the vaccine that caused it. But if you do get sick, you see a doctor, and then they will look at you, examine you, do some tests, and see if there is any link between the vaccine and the illness, or whether it's just a coincidence. And if things happen, and this is what I was saying before about the reporting system. So if a whole lot of people start to report the same thing, then it actually gets put in the, it gets picked up in the database, and they say, oh, look, it looks like there's something happening here, which is not just by chance. And they'll investigate it, and then they'll put out a new recommendation. So it is taken seriously every time. But a lot of the time, it's something that either would have happened anyway, or it's something that you notice more because you've had the vaccine.
And we have a question here. The government's emphasis is on vaccinating everyone. However, there is no guarantee that the vaccinated people are safer than the unvaccinated people. So should the vaccinated people be assured that the non-vaccinated people are not a threat to them?
It sounds like two questions. So one is the vaccine protecting people? And it is. So it is. So if you're vaccinated, your chance of getting seriously ill with COVID is much less than if you are not vaccinated. The thing about the unvaccinated people being a threat, I don't like the term of threats and fighting, it's a bad mentality, I think. It's everywhere, but it's a problem. Nobody wants to get sick. Nobody wants to make their loved ones sick. And the virus is not evil. It's not cruel. It's just a piece of information in physical form that copies itself. It has no consciousness. It's just one of those things that happens. So what we need to do is work together as a community, as a society, to help each other stay well and healthy, so that we can get back to a life where we, meet each other, and we go about doing the things that give our lives meaning. And at the moment, the best way to do that is to get vaccinated, and to get as many people vaccinated, so that those amongst us who either can't get vaccinated because the evidence is not there for the safety, like in young kids yet, it's not there yet, or those of us who have medical problems which prevent us from getting the full benefit of vaccination, so that those people will be protected by the rest of us, because we won't be exposing them to the infection.
And what home treatments can people use if they contract COVID?
Sorry, what treatments can they use?
What home treatments?
It's sort of basic advice. Even before it's just being healthy. So don't smoke. Now's a great time to quit smoking. Don't drink too much alcohol. Get enough sleep. Get regular exercise. Eat a good balanced diet. So those are the main things. And if you do have a medical condition which you need treatment for, take your treatment, whether that's high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever. And that advice is the same if you get COVID, because the better your health is when you get the infection, then the better your outcome will be.
We've got a question here from Kenya. Are more vaccines being developed?
Yes. Yeah, there are many vaccines in the pipeline, and many drug treatments as well, and lots of different kinds of therapies being investigated. So, as the months and the years go by, we should be seeing more advances.
Right. And just before we complete our show today, what is one action you can tell the viewers who are watching this show for them to stay healthy and safe?
Please follow COVID-safe behavior.
Yeah.
I think that's important. Vaccination alone is not going to prevent getting infected or spreading the disease. I think it's a holistic approach of wearing a mask, keeping your social distancing, doing the QR coding, and testing if you have any symptoms or if you've been to any of those sites. There's also government support, financial aid for people who might have loss of income when they have to test and quarantine as well. So it's a holistic approach. COVID-safe behavior is what we would strongly encourage in every single person.
Yeah, Chris?
I would agree with that. So do get vaccinated, but do all of the other things that protect yourself and protect your family. I guess be patient. So this is a new problem for everyone, and we are all working it out over time. Over the last year, almost 2 years now, we've done a lot as a society and even as a species on such a huge scale and so fast that it's actually quite amazing. We complain about a lot of things, but the way that everybody has actually worked together to protect each other has been quite astonishing and really gratifying. And the way that everybody supports each other emotionally, supports each other physically, financially, banding together to keep everybody getting through this has been great. It is exhausting. It seems to have gone on for a long time, and it's not yet over. But we do need to hang on and get through this. It's hard to know when we will go back to whatever normal turns out to be, but it will be better than it is now, and it'll happen faster if we work together.
Yeah, I just got a question here about, there's a lot of young people. Mental health has actually escalated since, COVID, because young people cannot socialize, cannot go out there. So what can they do? What else can they do? Because it's just so difficult for them.
Yeah, look, I really feel for younger people, especially, but the advice is still the same. Don't give up hope is the main thing, especially when you're young. And, I'm not that old. I still remember what it was like. When you're young, you feel the present moment lasts forever. You feel like it's always been like this. It's always going to be like this. It'll never change. But, of course it changes. And in a few years' time, you'll look back and this will have been one episode in your life. So help each other, support each other, stay connected. Pick up the phone, call. Someone calls you, just listen. Support each other. Don't blame each other for things. Just be together, emotionally, mentally, until we can be physically.
Yes, I know it's a tough one, but I think we're all in it together. Nobody's alone. That's the message out there. So that's all for today. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mohamed, for your insight and for sharing the good, the bad, and the curious about COVID-19. To the audience, thank you for being fabulous and watching the CWK Show Conversations Live, Katinda. Until next time, stay safe. May you all experience the frequencies of love and light. Stay blessed. Goodbye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.